Are you? All right. Hey. Hey, it's us Payne with Roleplay Public Radio and Ludonarrative Dissidents. I'm here with James Wallace. We are live with the event, our monthly live stream. As you can tell, we're very organized. And and we're here to talk about RPGs. Gregor's running a bit late. And just letting everybody know on our Discord. And this is the first minute people need to log on anyway. So
it's most of you are not here yet.
Yeah. So it's fine. And yeah. Anyways, we do have a little chat, and we're going to be talking about something fun today. We are going to be talking about Italy and Southern Europe in general, as James mentioned in our Blue Sky post. In particular, I guess this got started because of Outgunned the RPG. Let me pull up their website, because I think they have a whole website, not just they do. There's a company called Two Little Mice, and let's just pull up.
They have a very cool logo. It's
yes,
the two is formed by mice heads looking over the top of the
there we go. The thing. And I got the new browser from our last episode, but here we are. Translate to English. So oops. All right. Outgunned Cinematic RPG. Basically inspired by the classics of the action and heist genre, from Die Hard to True Lies, passing through James Bond, Lethal Weapon, Kingsman, Ocean's 11, Hot Fuzz, and the John Wick. The legendary John Wick. And we are John Marin, who's done some work for Delta Green, has reached out to me and James and I believe Greg, and wanted to talk about it, or wanted us to look at it. So I'll probably be running this for our actual play, but we did get a PDF as well, and a print copy. And so we have a lovely color. Have you had any time to look through this, James?
I haven't read it in huge depth. I've scanned it. I got an rough idea of the mechanics, but more of the structure of the thing and kind of what it's doing and what it's not doing. It's pretty nice. It's, as it says, it's fundamentally it's John Wick, the role-playing game. It is a game of long drawn-out combats and action sequences and ways of combining the two. It's a kind of almost a tactical action RPG, and this is not a review. We're not here to review the game. We're here to kind of talk about it and the culture from which it's emerged, both the gaming culture and the culture. But I would say I read through large chunks of it and was like, why isn't this on a board? This would actually work. Lots of this would work really well on a board with one of those lovely character sheets covered in tokens that you shift around and allocate your resources. I think that would be really fun. I think it would work really well in that. But then I'm not somebody who plays role-playing games for the combats. That's not why I'm there. This is not a game aimed at me. 20 years more, 25, 30 years ago, absolutely, this would have been completely up my alley. It's interesting, the sources that they quote on the back, the one thing that is not there is Heroic Bloodshed and the whole Hong Kong action movie, John Woo, post-John Woo, Soy Hark, that entire library of brilliant cinematic action that to a large extent came out of the 90s and informed the cinematic action of Hollywood ever since, starting with The Matrix and then all the Matrix imitators, and then everyone just going, maybe if we don't just rip off the Matrix, maybe if we just hire their stunt coordinators, that would maybe work better. Side note, there was a thing 2 or 3 days ago. A Western company has finally been able to license and is planning to re-release those brilliant John Woo movies, followed by some of the Soy Hark classics. And I'm hoping the Sammo Hungs, but also in the list was Chinese Ghost Story 1, 2, 3, which, man, I've never seen them in high def. I've never seen decent prints of them. I can't wait. This is really, and we're hoping this means Blu-ray releases. This is, not, streaming would be one thing. Blu-ray would be fantastic for, See the Killer, see Hardboiled in particular, one of my touchstones for when I'm thinking about designing an action system. I think about Hardboiled. I go to the set pieces in Hardboiled. In particular, if you've never seen Hardboiled, and you really should, there is, and you have to remember this is a movie from I think shot in the early 90s. There is a sequence in a hospital with Chow Yun-fat and is it Tony Leung? I think it's Tony Leung as the good guys shooting their way through hospital corridors. I think the body count is around 23 or 24. It's a 2.5 minutes shot, not sequence. Shot. It's a continuous shot. It's extraordinary. And just when I attempt to design an action RPG system, that is what I want to capture. That just breathless, non-stop action. And I think Outgunned pretty much gets there on its own terms. It's one of those, I wouldn't do it this way, but I respect the way they do it. It's pretty.
This is from the
that
hospital
action sequence. That action shot is on YouTube in multiple versions. Some of them really horrible. Well worth hunting down. But no, it's beautifully put together. If you didn't know it came out of Spain, I don't think anyone would go, this isn't an American RPG from a mid to large size RPG house. It's very, very professionally put together with, let's call it, American style production values. I think it's geared very heavily for the American market, though I believe, actually, I don't know why I believe it, because I'm not sure. I think it originally came out in Italian because it's Italian designers, Italian design. And
great art.
Yeah, really, really fun. Really, again, capturing the genre absolutely perfectly. But we don't tend to hear an awful lot about what's going on in mainland Europe in terms of its RPG scene, because not an awful lot of it gets translated, and really never has. Even if you're in the industry over here, they don't, a lot of them don't translate stuff on their own. They don't come over. They may come over for the big events, but they don't tend to take stands there. I got in contact with a bunch of these companies 25 years ago, more, when I was doing Munchausen, and also when I was doing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Partly because I was going to events in Europe, but also partly because they were interested in translating Europe, because they were much smaller markets. These were markets where D&D had not taken off necessarily in a big way. There was no kind of flagship RPG system, and a lot of it was fantasy games. So it was a much smaller market. The Spanish language market was much smaller. The Italian language market was much smaller, which meant that if you were setting up a publishing company in that market, you were producing smaller books because they were cheaper to produce. It was simple economies of scale, or lack of economies of scale. So there were these digest-sized books coming out with amazing stuff, really, really smart mechanics, really smart. The guy who, I can't remember the name of the company, but the Italian company that published the Italian edition of Baron Munchausen, their other main game was based on Orlando Furioso, the heroic poem from the 18th century. No, possibly even earlier than that. I have to admit I've never read Orlando Furioso, though I have seen all the Gustave Doré illustrations for it, which are sublime. And the Spanish as well, just mad, inventive stuff. There was one game which I think was a big hit in Spain, and they really wanted me to translate it into English. And I ran the idea past a whole bunch of distributors because, of course, this was the late 90s. If you couldn't get a role-playing game into distribution, then the only other outlet for it was convention sales. There were no online sales at that point, whether online mail order or PDF sales didn't exist. Ebooks didn't exist. There was no market there. But the idea of this thing was a right-wing government had come. This is a Spanish game, remember? So post not Castro. Who was the Spanish dictator?
Franco.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I just got completely stuck on that one. So it's kind of post-Franco stuff, but a totalitarian government comes in and cracks down on fandom, and you are the resistance. And yeah, I mean, so and your character classes are basically: are you a Star Trek nerd? Are you a vampire nerd? Are you a D&D nerd?
Oh,
brilliant stuff, all done in all the artwork very cartoony, very big nose cartoony, Southern European comic style. Brilliantly funny. Fan Hunter, that is Fan Hunter. Thank you, Rollist. I know it went into some other languages. I don't think it ever got an English language release. Crying shame. It was very funny.
Huh. Oh, there is a Wikipedia page for it.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it did get some notoriety, so that might be it. Let's see. Bizarre universe created by the Spanish comic author Celis Pinol. Definitely mispronounced that. With bizarre parody characters from Spanish comics books here.
Because I wasn't picking up. I wasn't getting the Spanish cultural jokes.
That makes sense. Oh my goodness. Role play. Oh wow, there's an article. Yeah. So yeah. Self-edited. Oh my goodness. That's cool. Yeah, it doesn't say. I guess it was never translated in English. All the editions are in Barcelona. So, this seems due for a fan translation, if nothing else.
I think so. I think maybe its time has come.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's fun. But yeah. Oh, there's a website too. I guess the fandom's still around for it at least. But Fanboria. Oh wow, that is a choice of publication sites.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, comics and novels, merchandise. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no idea. Yeah, the whole thing about RPGs is that in particular, there's a lot of ones coming from Italy in particular in the last year or two, because like Two Little Mice not only has Outgun, they have Household, which is about playing little people, tiny folk in a large house, fairies and bogarts from European folklore, but they also have Outgun Adventure, Memento Mori, an RPG of Dreams and Corruptions, Inferno, Dante's Guide to Hell, which I think is 5th edition. I'm not 100% sure because, 5th edition. Yeah, of course it would be 5th ed. That I do remember seeing that on Kickstarter. And Apocalypse Lease, which is also for 5th ed about the end times. Look, man, you gotta get paid. There's still a large market for it, but there is a whole article about this on Rascal News talking about some of these. Lovecraft-esque is from the UK, but there's a lot of them. One game that I found out about was Hell of a Town, which is this quick start, which is a cartoon gangster RPG and comparable to Toon in some ways.
Ooh.
But this is part of this whole, I don't know what to call it, but in the last 5-10 years, there's been this resurgence of interest in 1930s cartoons. I think the biggest thing of which
early
is
animation style.
Yeah, early animation style. The biggest of which is obviously the video game Cuphead, which is, if you haven't seen Cuphead, it is an absolute beautiful game to look at, and very bullet hell type.
Balls.
Yes, they made a choice by making it a boss rush bullet hell type game, but there's also Inky. There's also a thing called what is it? Inky
something in the Ink Machine.
Bindi and the Ink Machine.
Yes,
which is apparently real popular with the kids these days. This little guy, I've seen him at like fan stores and merch sales and stuff like that. But yeah, so this RPG seems to be in the same tapping that same vein of pop culture, and it's got a really cool design, and like we haven't had mini cartoon focused RPG since Toon in the 80s, so it's definitely and also things like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and stuff like that. So Yeah, obviously this is a little dirtier than Toon and not exactly safe for work in some ways. So I'm just gonna skim past the art a little bit. But yeah, it's God, it's really interesting. So yeah, you have your different character types. You can be a thing, a folk, a beastie, or a boogie. So yeah, it's real interesting. Might coincide with the public domain shifting to. That's actually a really good point because
Mm.
God, what
Yeah, a
we've
lot
had,
of, I mean,
yeah.
people focus on Mickey Mouse, but a lot of the early cartoons are coming out of copyright now. And I
Mhm.
know there's been at least one card game, because I contributed to it, based on the Mickey Mouse short Plain Crazy, in which, I mean, the idea is you have to put the cards into the correct order. It's not any great shakes, but the backs of the cards, Bez, who did it, they contacted pretty much every game designer they know, got them to contribute a paragraph of text about either the image or copyright or Mickey Mouse or whatever else. So it's a really interesting artifact of talking about creativity and the freedom to create
Hmm.
and the limits to create. People were talking about the time that Mickey Mouse, which is about a year ago, the first couple of Mickey Mouse shorts came out of copyright.
Mhm.
People were talking
Steamboat
about doing
Willie.
RPGs. Did
Yeah.
anyone do an RPG? I don't
I
even know
think
if
there
it's
was
still
a
press on.
game jam on itch about Steamboat Willie in particular.
Ah,
Let me look it up. I do know there's some video games based on that. So Steamboat Willie game jam. Steamboat Willie game jam. Yep. Of course, of course. You know, if he is there a game jam, and the answer is
yeah,
yes.
yes,
There's a
yes, there
game
is.
jam for everything. So yeah, last year it opened up Steamboat Willie. Um, oh yeah, these are more video game focused, but no, there's some
Mm.
tabletop games. See, yeah, a little bit of interest. There's actually another video game. I think it's called Mouse PI, coming up. PI game
Mhm.
where you're it's an FPS, but you're 19, also like a Steamboat Willie kind of
Oh,
mouse
lovely. That's
shooting game.
gorgeous.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it whenever it comes out. But
Mhm.
yeah, there's been that. I know this year, Popeye is now in the public domain, so I'm not. And of course,
Bits of Popeye are
bits
in
of
the,
Popeye. Yeah.
Popeye the character is large chunks of the Popeye universe
Hmm.
aren't yet because they were introduced later. It's like the Conan Doyle thing that,
Mm.
yeah, there are bits of Sherlock Holmes you can use and then bits you can't because Doyle introduced them later on.
Mm. Yeah, I do know. Yeah, Popeye is a little bit like, oh, the of course when Winnie the Pooh came out, we've had, now it's a franchise, I think, or a series of Winnie the Pooh slasher films.
Oh,
Uh,
two of them? Yeah, Blood and
there's a
Honey.
yeah, there's at least two of them. They're quite
And
yeah.
apparently awful.
Of course,
Well, I
yeah,
mean,
really, yeah, no, big
yeah.
shocker there. It's got a Wikipedia article.
But
Um,
the other things, I mean, on low budget movies, tying into the look of those early, very slapstick, very, very physical cartoons is, of course, Thousands of Beavers, which
yeah, Hundreds of Beavers, I think.
hundreds of beavers,
Yeah,
maybe the sequel will be Thousands of Beavers. Yes,
yeah.
which I have tried desperately to convince my family to come to the cinema with me and see, and they are just like, no, Dad, that sounds like one of your things. I will see Hundreds of Beavers, but everything I've heard about it and everything here we
Yes.
go. Um,
Hundreds of Beavers. Yeah, definitely the best thing. I've seen this. You can watch it now on Tubi, I think, or one of the streaming sites, and you can rent it. I wanted to get there was a limited edition Blu-ray that came out that sold out in like a week. They sold like 8 or 9 thousand copies. So I missed my chance to get it, but like yeah, it's yeah, Looney Tune veins, but made by just a couple of people with green screen and After Effects and a dream,
yeah,
and it's
really, no budget at
yeah,
all. People
yeah.
I genuinely respect, including the former director of the Edinburgh Film Festival, have told me that it's the funniest film they've ever seen, or among
Hmm.
the films they've ever seen. I got an email from John Kovalik earlier this week going, by the way, did you know the director or co-creator is touring with it? So they do it, and then there's a Q&A.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I
no,
it's
I
adorable.
really do want to see it. But yeah, there is a lot of interest in this. But it took me a while to get into it, but I was transfixed. Yeah, it's God, it's really, yeah, it's definitely something you want to watch with friends. It's a lot better as a group experience, I'll have to say, if you get a chance, or with family or anything like that. Because I watch it with some friends, and yeah, just absolutely hysterical. But yeah, there's a lot of interest in this old time aesthetic and style, not just the visual aesthetic, but like the sense of humor too, like this slapstick Looney Tunes silliness. And I think going back to like Hell of a Town, I think really leans into that. If your stats are like touchy feely, handy, and loony, and
I love
bucks,
that.
yeah, debt, pocket money, rap sheet, yeah, it's how to play. And of course we have our little devils, and it's a game that is definitely 100%. Oh, it uses playing cards too. So yeah, skedaddle may choose to flee and remove themselves. So attacking, the only consequences are fear, mocking, and bullying for the rest of the gang. So yeah, it's a playing card game based RPG too. So that's pretty interesting.
Mm.
Um, but I do know with Outgun is a D6 die pool system. Going back to that, but this is obviously very reminiscent, like you mentioned earlier, Feng Shui the RPG, but like as not Hong Kong aesthetic, but like the generation of films in like there's that generational thing of like Hong Kong inspires Hollywood, and now Hollywood has gone there. And now if you watch like modern action films made in Hong Kong or anything like that, they're very influenced by Marvel movies. Like I watched Twilight of the Walled City, which is a movie set in Kowloon walled city in the 1980s. It's about gangsters feuding with each other. It does feature Sammo Hung as a crime boss. But like the characters in here are like, when they punch and miss a wall, they're punching holes through the concrete or the rock. Like they're like superhumanly strong, and it's almost like a wuxia film with the characters flying around and everything like that. And which kind of for me is like, like it was fine, but not quite my jam. But yeah, it's kind of the circular influence. But yeah, it's real interesting that Italy is the one. Oh yeah, we haven't even mentioned like Fabula Ultima was an Italian
Mm.
RPG as well, which I have a copy of. And that's
That's the one that Fabula Ultima translates as Final Fantasy.
yeah.
So yeah, that's what it is.
Weird, huh? One word, what it was influenced by. TTJRPG. This is your story now. Create your own setting. Intuitive rule set. 15 classes. Literally inspired by video games. And it's in fact, I think I have the PDF of it as well. So let me see if I can pull it up.
Oh, cool.
We can take a look at it.
Cool. And Two Little Mice also did Household, which I think is or has knocked down some doors on crowdfunding and seems to be very popular. In which you play the kind of traditional, the spirits of the world, the fairies and boggarts. So littlings is the word the game uses to describe them, the small creatures from folklore. So which is a great premise, and a very kind of European premise as well.
Oh yeah.
And sounds really, really interesting.
Yeah, I can find a copy of it.
I would be interested to contrast that to Changeling, the White Wolf game, which attempted to kind of go to fairy or do stuff with fairy, but for me never caught what made that stuff interesting.
Well, I know for Changeling, a lot of that was the role playing aspects of playing someone dealing with trauma. It's definitely one of those RPGs I think was more popular as a LARP than necessarily as a tabletop RPG, because the drama inherent of playing this tortured person and is let's see, information I can't place order sure. I see. I will pull up the household quick start guide here in a second, and we can take a look at that. There we go. Yeah, beautiful artwork, I have to say.
This is not the Borrower's RPG. Someone else has done a Borrower's, not we know, with the trademarks scrubbed off. This is not that one, but it's kind of in that, you know, you're living alongside human society and influencing it, as I understand it, but not necessarily. You know, it's not. You're not just little people.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, as you say, it looks absolutely gorgeous.
Folks, the origins. I think there's something about like customizing the house as a campaign like setting, like what, like the house is not preset, so you kind of define what it is. And oh yeah, we had like traditional European things like sylphs, undines, and salamanders as and yeah, the slaw and yeah.
It just occurred to me. Some people may not know the Borrowers series of books has been adapted to TV and film, but is best known as it's the source material for Arrietty, the Studio Ghibli movie.
Oh yeah, and I do like Arrietty. God, yeah, a lot of character creation stuff, which you know makes sense. Okay, welcome to the house. Here we go. So it's like yeah, a little the house is also like a little microcosm world for them. So yeah, see
Now,
the realm map as like a house as floor plans of a house.
This reminded me a lot of Little Big, the John Crowley, I think, novel that won the World Fantasy Award, I think, in the early 80s, and that I got halfway through and ditched. But it has very much a similar, that vibe of, I mean, the Little Big is very much from the human's perspective, but there's a house that is essentially also a universe.
Mm-hmm.
And is one of the places that fairies can essentially cross over into the real world. I think, I'm not sure I'd recommend it. I think for the right person, it would be an amazing book. But for me, it spends too much time dicking around in the city, which is not interesting. House stuff is great. Anyway.
We have a question here. Is this powered by the apocalypse? Because I'm tired of PBTA. That's fair, but it is not. This uses its own system, which is a D6 pool system, where you're rolling not for highs or lows, but for matches. You know, 2, 3, and 4 of a kind, and that kind of thing. So, it is. So it does have at least that. It is an original system. I think Outgun uses a similar system. It's like
Outgun. Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah.
It's. I didn't go into it in much depth. It slightly annoyed me because I've been thinking about doing something based very loosely on dice games, either poker dice or Yahtzee, or one of those pattern matching, pattern building games as a kind of a push your luck RPG mechanic. This does exactly that, and it's like, damn it, I won't be at first to it.
Well, I mean, One Roll Engine beat you to the punch there a while ago.
Oh, so. Okay.
Yeah, like I mean, if Greg was here, he'd be able to tell you. Like, I think
I should actually read that one day.
Yeah, One Roll Engine is really good. I think they first used it with Godlike, and then they had Wild Talents as a standalone superhero RPG, which is what I. And then Monsters and Other Childish Things, and then Rain, which has got its second edition. So I've run a ton of games with One Roll Engine, and that is all. I mean, although that uses D10s instead of D6s, so the math and the pools are quite different. But it is quite good. So we have a lot of world building stuff and how to play. So yeah, seems pretty straightforward. As with this concept, right? Like going on adventuring in this you know, the human world where every bit of furniture is its own realm or its own town. So just traveling from one floor to the other would be an epic journey. And see, here we go. Yeah, difficulty of an action. So and they have, of course, fancy bespoke dice. If you don't want to use that, these do.
Is a game a real game if it doesn't come with an overpriced set of dice?
Well, if it could have an overpriced set of cards.
True. Its own tarot.
Yeah, tarot or just item cards or encounter cards or you gotta have some cards. Let's see here. Yeah, basic sex 2 of a kind, critical 3, extreme 4, 5. That's pretty. Oh, and the cards, the numbers, instead of numbers, they have suits of cards. So that's clever. Not too bad. So yeah, I yeah, it's a nice little cute little game. And yeah, Outgun uses the same basic dice mechanics, but obviously has a lot of different rules. I know there's stuff about using a catchphrase, and there's obviously push your luck stuff with stunting, gambling, and suffering conditions as consequences of that. Because like in a cinematic or combat RPG, you can't just have like you take enough damage, you die. You got to have a lot of different little things for bad things to happen to your characters. You get worn. It's more about attrition than like getting killed in one encounter, right? So,
Mm.
um, and ooh, death roulette. Let's read about this. The end of a hero. Next to your conditions, there's a 6-bullet cylinder that represents the death roulette. The more the cylinder fills up with lethal bullets, the closer you are to your doom. When you're about to be left for dead, the director will take a spin on the death roulette, and the single die will decide whether you survive. When he director asks you to take a spin on the death roulette, roll a d6. If the result is greater than the number of bullets you have escaped, if it's equal or lower, you are left for dead. So unless a friend saves you at the last second by using one of their spotlights. So you begin this game with one lethal bullet in the cylinder, and you add more whenever you take an arrow to escape.
I love the concept. I think it's just you're trying to roll higher than a number to survive. It's like, no, give each bullet a number and then roll the d6, and if that number comes up, you have fired that bullet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice mechanic, poorly implemented, says the reviewer.
Yeah, I mean, I would run a game of it first to see how it works in practice. I do like that idea.
It's brilliantly in genre. That's great.
Yeah, it is brilliant in genre. I really like this having this little thing. I assume this is on your character sheet. Let's see if they have a character list of player characters. Time for action. Making a real hero. Let's see here. Yeah, see, it's on your little character sheet. So let's take a look at the character sheet a little more. So you have your death roulette. You have a bunch of conditions you can get, so you can get worn down in really a granular way. And lots of different, skills, grit. Yeah. Yeah. A little battery thing for adrenaline. That's fun. Like that Jason Statham movie. What was it? Crank.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
The closest thing to a video game any movie has ever got.
Hardcore Harry, I think, could argue.
Oh no, yes, true. But both of them, I think, movies that know they're fundamentally stupid and don't care and just lean into that.
Going on a side, I had a discussion with a friend recently. We were watching a B movie, and we were watching a 1980 film called Light Blast, which stars Eric Estrada, and it's just utterly ridiculous. But it's made by an Italian director, and it's like the difference between American B movies and Italian B movies is American B movie directors are embarrassed about making B movies, and they just put it out and it's just schlock. They don't give a shit. Italian movie directors take it seriously. It's a job. They want to make the best possible B movie they can, and they just fucking go for it. And in this is like a screenshot from the last car chase in this movie, and this movie starts strong. There's a mad scientist with a laser. He's trying to ransom the city, and it starts out with him lasering the train yard, which has two teens in a train car making out, and they get melted in a stop motion animation sequence. And it just goes wackier from there. And but yeah, so like I appreciate the people who know that they're making crap, but like they take the craft seriously, like and it's a lot of fun. So yeah, I like these kind of games that know that they're being like silly one-shot kind of games, because this is obviously not like for a campaign. It's about describing cool stunts and action scenes and seeing if you can get away with it and pushing your luck to see how much you can get across. So let's see here. We have, you can do campaigns, but like I don't think it would be a very long campaign for this. Yeah. Let's see here. Do we have any questions from our viewers? When I watched the trailer to Hardcore Henry, I kept thinking, wow, this would have been really cool if it came out about a decade ago. Well, yeah, but I still appreciate it. It's quite dumb. Yeah. Let's see. Are there any other Italian or European RPGs you want to focus on?
I'm trying to think of other names. I mean, the one thing I will say is there's some really, because they can get away with doing, because their customers are used to paying slightly more for smaller formats, they do some very, very cool things. There's a company that licensed my game Las Vegas and did it, just kickstarted it, and that was it, and that was the entire print run. But whereas I formatted it as, you know, it looked like a book, they did it to look like a Gideon Bible. So it's a faux leather binding with a little ribbon bookmark, and yeah, it's a beautiful production job. I have no idea how critically it was received in Spain, a very Catholic country. I don't know whether the roleplay community is very Catholic. But yeah, there are riches out there. If you can speak Spanish or French or Italian, it is really worth going to look at what is out there, because there is stuff that will never make it into English, is never discussed in the English market or in the English fan sites or Discords or wherever else. So much imagination. I mean, again, when I did a Las Vegas, I thought this whole idea of you design a rule set to run a very particular style of very, very niche game, which in my case was Amnesia games that would last 4 sessions. And then you package that with the campaign, and was almost immediately contacted by some French people going, yeah, we've been doing that a while. Here are some of our work. And I was like, oh, cool. I commission you to do, you know, because the Kickstarter was going well, I commission you to do an insert. And that was Jerome Larrey and Bob Darko is his pen name. I can't remember his real name. Anyway, but yeah, did an amazing post-superhero, post-Watchmen style superhero thing in which you play both the superheroes involved in a murder and also the police investigating the murder. Really, really smart design. Not the sort of thing that would come out of an Immature Scene. These are designers who have been designing really clever narratives, not necessarily rule systems, but really smart narratives and ways of storytelling within them for a long, long time. I mean, again, back in the 90s, Hogshead tried very hard to publish a French game called Bloodlust, designed by Croc, who went on to be one of the founders of Asmodee, and I assume now is quite rich. I don't know if he's still game designing. He was a fantastic role-play designer. Bloodlust was basically, it was, and other companies have done this now, but remember, this is the 90s. It was a game in which you have 2-player characters. You have a human character, and you have the magic weapon, the intelligent magic weapon that they carry around with them, who are incarnate gods. They are gods who have incarnated in physical form in the universe as weapons, and the weapons are functionally indestructible. So your humans have adventures, but your weapons, who quite often hate the humans because the humans are squishy and die in inconvenient places, thus leaving the weapon there. It is the weapons that have the campaigns, and you play both, and it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. There's so much clever design in there. And we licensed it. We paid somebody to translate the whole thing, and then they wouldn't give me the translation because things, publishing. But really smart. And again, yes, multiple companies have done this. I believe Roanoke and Descartes have done a similar game quite recently. But this is 30 years ago. This, I think, came out in about 95 or so, and it was a major hit in France. And they had this epic 5 or 6 volume campaign, which I have heard compared by more than one person to one of the great role-playing campaigns like The Enemy Within. It's that good. And then they finished the campaign and published 2 more adventures, which were so bad that it killed the line.
Oh, geez.
We would not have republished those ones. But yeah, so that kind of stuff coming out. But at the same time, just looking around in the French scene, there was so much. They were licensing stuff. There was Oh, I can't even remember what it was called. I want to call it Agon. I mean, but Nephilim was originally French, of course. Callum on the chat is going to correct me on this. Nephilim and in Nomine Satanis Magna Veritas, which came out as in Nomine from Steve Jackson, both originally French, both very, very different in the original. And I think people who know the original would generally argue that the French originals are better. The Anglicization, the Americanization of them, though done by Derek Piercy doing In Nomine and Ken Hite doing Nephilim, you know, masters, admittedly early on, comparatively in their careers, but they just don't capture what makes the games really, really work and what makes them really special. And again, that's 30 years ago. And these were, you know, Nephilim was a big book. There was, I want to call it Agon. I'm not sure it was, but it was based on Philip Jose Farmer's World of Tears series. Hardback, like that thick, profusely illustrated. My God, the nudity in that book. I mean, just and somebody who'd been used to the English language market, where even up to the late 90s, publishers were having books pulled by printers who refused to print books because there was nudity in the, even very stylized nudity in the artwork.
Mm-hmm.
This was a thing up to the late 90s. And the French are just going, look, here's the tits. They've got all the piercings. Here's the here's the cocks. Whoa! And it was kind of jaw-dropping. I've no idea how the game actually was.
Looks pretty complex.
I thrust it in front of people and just went, look what the French are doing.
I do want to mention, you mentioned, like, I don't know how Catholic they were, and I just remember the most Catholic game I've ever seen, which is a video game called Blasphemous, which is made by a Spanish video game developing company. And just look at these bosses that you have to fight in this game and tell me this is more Warhammer than Warhammer. It's more Catholic than any other game I've ever seen. Just it's you play a character named the Penitent One. You're fighting martyrs and demigods and saints, and it's incredibly violent and blasphemous. So yeah, it's pretty great. Yeah, there's I did pull up. So yeah, Nephilim has its own Wikipedia article. I would say it's pretty complex. Anything related to the Hermetic tradition is going to be really not a rules setting light kind of game, I would imagine. I have seen some books of it floating around. And let's see, I do there was another game someone mentioned in the comments.
You flashed up hundreds of beavers there. It's that was this French game I'm talking about.
Heyo. No, someone else mentioned another game that has recently another European game that has recently been translated. Brank Colonia, a spaghetti fantasy role-playing game. The Bounty Kingdom
fantasy. I love that.
I know, right? Like I can't remember who in our comments said this. Is this a French or an Italian game? Let's see here. Where was it? It was Monster Trail. Yeah, I don't know if this was anyways, yeah, I just love that. Yeah, I love the title too. I just look at this cover art of this, eating unidentified piece of meat, smoking, drinking, dead monster. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? You're the dregs of the adventure were the Ken Fodderwall battle, desperate missions, innies. Yeah, it looks great. And I've not heard of this before. Yeah, I think it is an Italian game as well. Let's see. Yeah.
For those who don't know, I mean, the term spaghetti western comes because Sergio Leone was Italian, obviously, and brought a very Italian sensibility to movies that were ostensibly set in the Old West at a very particular time, based around, I think, the end of the Civil War and stuff like that, but were filmed in Spain. So they are, despite starring Clint Eastwood, the classic trilogy, Fistful of Dollars, Few Dollars More, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly are very European takes on a very American genre. I think spaghetti fantasy, obviously Italy has its own tradition of fantasy, as does Spain. I mean, Quixote is Spanish, obviously. But I'd be really intrigued to see what their what tradition of fantasy it is that they are subverting. Is it the D&D tradition? Because if so, yes, fantastic, because that's a very American style of fantasy.
Yeah, this is kind of like, I'm getting kind of like picaresque, like Warhammer Fantasy vibes from this, but like as viewed through like a spaghetti, like Italian perspective instead of, British and German. So yeah, like there's a whole, God, yeah, I mean, you know more than me about the kind of, adventures like Farford and the Grey Mouser kind of vibes a little bit. Yeah. And yeah, just like also like 1980 fantasy films. I'm thinking like Beastmaster and something like Conan movies, and barrel beating and poppycock dive games. Oh yeah, see, like
This is fantastic. I have to get this.
Yeah. I love that they have special, like, oh, here's the kind of games you do in bars and taverns, barrel beating, the ancient tavern sport, was born as an allegorical reinterpretation of the well-known popular saying, you can't have your barrel filled to the brim and your wife drunk too, and sees the participant challenge each other in a test that combines resistance to alcohol, talent in arms, and a little bit of good luck, as long as it's the saint's will. The barrel, although called a barrel, sometimes a pot, a coffin, or other container, is usually robustly made and even reinforced, hangs on creaking ropes or occasionally on chains. The barrel contains a loot, consists of the sum total of the bets collected from the participants. Determine the barrel's AC and hit points and any special traits. Participants place their bets inside the barrel, and the barrel is then hung and the game begins. They wager how many shots, ranged attacks with light weapons, they will take against the barrel. These will be the equivalent of the number of beers they will have to consume before throwing. They have to succeed in a con saving throw, become drunk, and suffer disadvantage in attack dice. So you're drinking. Oh, okay. So it's like beer pong, but like more intense.
It sounds like, I mean, there is a traditional British, I don't know if it's a pub sport, but I think done mostly while drunk, where two contestants sit on an oiled or greased pole and have to try and knock each other off, usually into water or sometimes just onto sand, or sometimes barrels, I think, and I can't remember what it's called. It's not Dwile flunking, that's something completely different. But yeah, a huge tradition of pub games. I have a book somewhere which I'm not going to try and dig out. I did wonder for a moment when you mentioned pub games whether they were trying to do what James Ernest did, actually create a physical version of a game described within a novel. And I'm now blanking on the name of the novel and the name of the game, but James Ernest designed it along with the creator of the fantasy novel, and it was kickstarted to huge success. I mean, decent, mid six figures Kickstarter, as I recall. But Dave Sim, who did Cerebus the Aardvark, which started off as a bizarre Conan parody, and then just for a while was possibly the best fantasy comic being published, and then Dave went mad about that's possibly libelous. Dave went strange about issue 190, 200 or so, and it went very odd.
Oh yeah,
half the run of Cerebus is fantastic,
yeah.
But Cerebus in the early issues plays a card game in pubs, and again, this is mid-80s. Dave Sim released that card game, and I used to have a copy of it. I think it is now stupidly collectible. It wasn't bad, actually. Yeah. I might have to try and dig that out. But this whole tradition of games within games or games within other media, and the fact that some of them are actually interesting and playable.
I mean, it's a whole thing.
It's a whole
genre in anime and manga. But yeah, hey, Greg is here. How you doing, Greg?
Hey.
I feel terrible because I would have sworn in court, I would have put my hand on the Bible and said this was tomorrow. I feel like shit.
Don't worry about
I apologize to everyone.
Yeah.
I will stay
I mean, if you feel
late.
literally like shit, then go back to bed, man.
No, it's no. I'm wide awake, but
okay.
I'm filled with regret.
Okay, right from the top then.
What
yeah,
have I
Greg,
missed?
we've been talking about Italian European RPGs have been translated into English.
Which I think I just received one in the mail today.
Outgunned, have you
Outgunned?
Yes.
Yes.
We have taken a look at that earlier. It does look quite interesting. Have you had a time to form any thoughts on it? If not, we
Not
can.
yet.
Okay.
I am like 4 pages in.
All right.
So
well, we can save that for the next your thoughts on Outgun for the next live stream, because I do want to hear what you have to think about it, because it's one thing about Outgun that I find interesting is it's in the space that Feng Shui kind of like occupied for the longest time, and so I kind of like, not many games have really approached that. Since no game I think is really like, I'm gonna do cinematic action combat. Oh, you mean what Feng Shui's done? And like, well, the Outgun's like, no, I'm gonna do my own thing. It's and
well, it looks like it's someone's like, what if Feng Shui didn't have all the time travel and apes and whatnot?
It's straight. It's
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's
not much wire work in it. I think
there were straightforward action games before that I can vaguely remember.
Hong Kong Action Theater, I know, is one.
Yeah,
of course.
There was Hong Kong Action Theater. There
was an Irish system, which I'm blanking on the name of it, but yeah.
I do like how I did just see that the adventure is written as a script. Like, oh, that's cute.
I mean, what I've seen
essentially
from...
every section is a set piece, pretty much. Which fits.
That makes sense. Although as a script, it's terrible. There's way too much description, not nearly enough dialogue. This is terrible. Like, bad script writing feature. But it's an action movie, so bad script writing is
that's a feature, not a bug. I just saw someone posted it might have some Ore DNA, and I have to confess that while I was being late for this call, I was like, oh yes, I can see my influence in the current crop of games where they're tracking matches. They've learned.
I brought up One Roll Engine earlier this thing.
Yeah.
Talked about a whole thing. Although this is D6 not D10, so the math is definitely different.
When I popped in, I mean the curve would change a lot, but it looks like you're not going to be rolling huge pools, and so if you have 6 dice, it's like, well, yeah, I'm absolutely going to succeed, but how much and how many times? So I'll see what happens when I read the rules, because at one point I did consider or with D6s, and I'm like, man, that is a really tight, small set of potential outcomes, especially before you get into automatic success. I mean, once you could do it with 10 dice and it's 10d6. It's like, oh, how many sets am I going to get if you're doing something like superheroic or exalted-esque?
Yeah, but at the same time, you're not, because this is cinematic action. It is kind of a limited number of outcomes, most likely.
Which is fine.
I mean, it's a role playing in not in dialogue or in characterization. It's in imagining action as a like, wouldn't it be cool if this cool thing happened, like, and going from there. I do want to briefly question here we have from one of our viewers. I'm currently preparing a series of Call of Cthulhu scenarios from other languages, unavailable in English. Do you have any recommendation? I oddly specifically have a very specific recommendation, because when I went to Japan, I went to Yale Submarine. I mentioned I picked up this book called Call of Cthulhu Bibliotech 13, which is not available in English.
Cup of Horror.
Yeah, Cup of Horror. And it's this is just one scenario from it, but like
scroll back up to the graphic. How big is that child's head?
Well, it's a small door. Don't worry about it.
That may be the point.
Here we go. So there are, I mentioned one earlier, cartoon reading animation, but if you email this guy at mjrrpg.com, he has English translations of some of these scenarios. If you can get this book, let's see here if I can find a cover image of it. Here's the cover image of it. And so yeah, if you can order this, you can get someone has translated it into English to a degree, and it has a really neat cover. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna try and run it. But anyways, that's my recommendation. Any other non-English language things? So yeah,
there's got to be just like a ton in French and German that we don't know about.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Cthulhu's
big in France.
Worlds of Cthulhu magazine. If you could track down a copy of copies of those, that was a German magazine that did Call of Cthulhu stuff in English, but like it was originally a German. And here's a Noble Knights page on it. There are only 7 issues made. Now that I think about it,
how many do you really need?
Well, they have different scenarios in each one. Like I've run a couple of scenarios from it, from different ones.
Oh, from Pegasus. Pegasus is a huge German publishing company.
Yeah,
mostly board games, but they
specifically ran this for someone
last year. Schwarzbrunn.
Yeah, that's medieval, and so yeah, there's some. So Pegasus. There's a bunch of German. So I look at Pegasus Spiel. I looked them up. They have a lot of German Call of Cthulhu materials. So but anyways, sorry, I just wanted to answer that question real quick. We can get back to our gun. I do want to mention like this filmography is very interesting to me because Hardboiled is not in it, but Murder She Wrote is, and I love that. I want to see. What episode did I miss where there's an extended gunfight? But like there's some interesting choices here.
Tenet, which I still haven't seen. I'm like, okay.
Well, it's
wow.
Fine.
That was a very expressive groan, James. Somehow in
English, I wanted to like Tenet so hard, and some of the ideas really pay off, and then some of them, a thing happens, and you just go, "That is going to pay off in the following way in 45 minutes," and it does. It's a great concept that I'm not sure was filmable.
I am so glad
it's worth seeing only to see how it fails.
Columbo is on there too.
Whatever. I thought I saw all of Columbo. Like, I don't remember any. He never uses a gun. That's the whole point.
Can you pick just one more thing?
Yeah.
And about the only Hong Kong action movie I can see is Ip Man, which that counts. But if that's your only frame of reference, that's a kind of a weird one.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it's
a Tenet.
It is possible. So if this is an Italian game, maybe a lot of Hong Kong movies don't subtitle in Italian.
That could be it. I will say,
if I'm an Italian who's speaking English, who's watching a Hong Kong movie, I maybe don't want to also have to translate it from English. It might just be, too many removes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say Tenet. I'm glad I waited until streaming to watch it so I could have subtitles on, because that audio mixing
is one of those.
Yeah, it's very loud at times. I'm like, okay, but
what is "Watch Out, We're Mad"?
That's a really good question. Let's find out.
1974.
While you're Googling, I'm just going to... This is almost a footnote. They sent me a copy from America. The postage on this not terribly large hardback, standard USPS postage, was $72. And that is why mail order is dead. Or international mail order is dead for role-playing products.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah. No, there's actually one of my other podcasts, Night Clerk Radio. I've been trying to get this book called Dark Dungeon: The History of Dungeons. It's like a 200,000 word book about the history of Dungeons. Dungeonsynth, which is a subgenre of electronic music that sounds like synthesizer fantasy music. It's a very niche thing, but I really want to get this book and do like a deep dive on it for the podcast. And all the US stores that have it are sold out. They only printed 100 copies or 200 copies or something, and it's like $43 per copy. I need 2 copies because I need to send it to my friend, my co-host as well, so we could both read it. and it's like, why don't please have an ebook? I want to give you money. Why won't you let me give you money? And it's like, just not $200 for 2 copies of a book. But anyways, Watch Out, We're Mad. I'd not heard of this.
It's Italian, strangely enough.
Italian Spanish co-production. And 2 rival race car drivers win shared ownership over a dune buggy in a race. When the buggy is wrecked due to the indirect orders of a profiteer, oh no, they demand a replacement buggy. When the opponent decides to send a henchman against them, the argument escalates into a violent conflict.
Okay, so this is
action
like
comedy. Yeah.
BJ and the Bear, or
pretty much. And Donald Pleasance is in it.
Well, of course, Donald Pleasance is in it. It's 1974.
Good for him. I'm glad. So, yeah, it's boy, a lot of stuff happens. Terrence Hill, Bud Spencer. So interesting. Let's go back.
They've got someone credited as gymnast, which is a tremendously positive sign. In a movie. I mean, the only better thing, the only higher seal of quality I can picture on an action movie is someone being credited as surfer who stupidly stared straight into the camera after getting ripped off by the surf Nazis from Surf Nazis Must Die.
Well, I like that title. They do have to die. Yeah, let's see here. We have obviously the John Wick films. I'm surprised they didn't just say I have all of the John Wick films, just the original.
They're like, no, don't come at me with the Continental crap. No.
They have the original Predator, which is an obvious, but they should put at least Predator 2, because I will defend that movie, because it is, as my friend Kale mentions, it's just like, that second half of that film is Danny Glover just being too goddamn stubborn to die. Just his broke ass is just dragging himself through the city, fighting this predator, and it's just one man too stubborn to die trying to kill this alien hunter, and it's great. It's a ridiculous movie, and I love Predator 2.
All right, well,
yeah, and of course Commando. That's also a classic. Also, kind of like the people don't realize about Commando, it was making fun. It was meant to be an over-the-top parody of like Canon Films action movies. Like they knew it was ridiculous. That was the point. But it was to embrace it. Yeah,
this is a common problem that a lot of media have, is like, oh, we're going to make fun of X by being so ridiculously over the top that no one could possibly take it seriously, and then people take it seriously and it becomes a thing. It in a weird way, it reminds me of the analysis of the guy who did All in the Family, who's talking about All in the Family. He's like, yeah, about half of our fans were people who were laughing at Archie Bunker, and half were people saying, oh, who were laughing with Archie Bunker. And we're saying, yeah, he's just saying what we all think. And the other half are like, no, he's a ridiculous bigot. He's a terrible human being. And there are people who are like, yeah, Colbert Show was the same way, where half the people are like, oh, look at this funny mock-up of conservative semi-thought, and other people are like, look at this funny conservative. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't think Brooklyn Nine-Nine counts on that. I think that's was that on the list though? Let me look. Or were you talking about the list?
Yes, it is. It's on the list.
Yeah,
interesting.
I can see it. I recently did a rewatch. Yeah.
There's some action scenes in it. Yeah,
there are definitely some. My
Blade Runner. Okay, all right.
I have 2 favorite parts from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. One is the classic "I Want It That Way" lineup scene, but the other is where, after like 4 seasons of establishing Hitchcock and Scully as these disgusting slobs, mostly noteworthy for their health problems, their complete loads on the precinct, they never do anything, they're stupid, they're useless, they're the scum, they're the wretches of the earth. And then you get this flashback to like 90s Scully and Hitchcock, and they're these godlike, sculpted, beautiful men doing Miami Vice stuff. And just the Hitchcock, Scully, what happened to you?
Oh, God.
It's well,
yeah. Bloodsport, obvious. JCVD, Jean-Claude Van Damme's one of his greatest movies. Point Break.
I didn't see that on the list. I love JCVD. It is a masterpiece. And if you don't believe...
Well, no, I was referring to it. Bloodsport is a JCVD film, not the. But yeah, you're right. JCVD.
What is JCVD? Wait, there's JCVD.
JCVD is standing for Jean-Claude Van Damme. Is a movie in which Jean-Claude Van Damme plays washed-up martial arts actor Jean-Claude Van Damme returning to his hometown. I will say no more, except it is a fucking masterpiece. It is extraordinary. It's There are there's stuff in there that you're just going, are they going to? And they do, and it's strangely beautiful as well.
I love it when an actor doesn't take themselves seriously and is willing to be like, oh yeah, I'll play a jerk ass version of myself. You know, you've seen whatever other flaws he had, Captain Kirk was willing to do this on Saturday Night Live and completely make fun of himself. Keanu did it in Always Be My Maybe, and
multiple things.
Prompting the song "I Punched Keanu Reeves." It's
Jonathan Van Damme, like during the pandemic, for like a year, me, my brother, and some of his friends would get together and watch. We went through his entire filmography. From his earliest film to his most recent.
Find all of them.
Well, I have certain. I can, if there's a film available.
You have a very particular set of talents.
I can legitimately acquire many movies, very legitimately. Let's not ask any questions about it.
They call him the Disc Hunter.
I could tell you what the best and the worst JCVD films are.
Okay,
and
I'd say between Wolf and Dog. Uncredited extra. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't do the ones where he was not like we started with No Retreat, No Surrender, because that was his first like actual.
You didn't want him to. You didn't want to see him as gay karate man.
Well, he was like it's basically it's a short film too, like feature lead films. Okay. So No Retreat, where he plays the bad guy, the heavy, in one of these strip mall dojo films. And all the way to the present. And he's actually really interesting because there's this term now, geezer teaser, where like a washed up older actor, but who has a name, does these movies where he has like 10 minutes of screen time and he doesn't do very much. But like JCVD, and it's very common. Bruce Willis used to do a bunch of them before he had to retire for health reasons. Steven Seagal
is a bunch of them while his mind was going.
Yeah, you could. I've seen some of
the later ones, and he's not there.
Steven Seagal is notorious for it, as he won't even he has to sit in a chair now. Basically, he's so out of shape. But JCVD is interesting because he still goes for it, and he still tries. And
the opening sequence. I'm not going to spoil the opening sequence, but the opening sequence is like we were talking about the hard-boiled hospital sequence. It's like a 90-second extended stunt sequence. And it's him, and he one shot, and he does it. It's stunning. I will not.
No, you should definitely watch JCVD film. But the other film, if you want to see what a late JCVD can do, and with a really interesting story and script, is Universal Soldier
I would
Day
not have picked that to have a really interesting script.
I've heard really good things.
So it's directed by John Hames, who is an action director and cinematographer and writer, who is the son of Peter Hames, who has done, he did
everything.
Yeah, done tons of things. He is so like
2010.
Okay. And so this. And John Hames hangs out with Refn, who directed Drive, and this is like very much in the same vein. This is like an entire like philosophical re-examination of the concept of Universal Soldier, and it has incredible fight scenes. And JCVD basically plays the original Universal Soldier, who's become like a Colonel Kurtz like figure, raising a covert army of other resurrected soldiers to fight a secret war against the US government. And so it does this kind of Apocalypse Now thing where our main guy is sent on an assassination mission to get JCVD because JCVD killed his family in a home invasion. And it's just Dolph Lundgren's in it too, also playing a batshit insane, resurrected soldier, and it's fucking wild. And it's a great movie
compared to David Lynch.
Yeah, exactly.
May
he rest in peace. Yeah. And
what?
So
what did you say about David Lynch?
Rest in peace.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was the other thing.
No. So JCVD actually tries. He's still trying to make movies where he's and playing an interesting character. Not all the time, but like he still does interesting things. And so there's a lot of films that you'll watch and be like, okay. Like sometime in the late 90s, I think he did a like a Yojimbo knockoff in 1999. Yeah, with Donnie Trejo and Pat Morita is in it. Like, it's weird. Like, and it's directed by he directed Rocky. And this was his last movie.
And the Karate Kid. Okay.
Yeah, like it's a weird, like he's done some interesting movies. It's fun. I like it. It's not the best movie, but it's entertaining. So
direct to video voice roll.
The thing is, what I found is a lot of these direct to videos are like done by interesting directors who just want to mess around and have fun. There's a recent JCVD film where he plays it's set on the American North, American
himself.
Let's see, is it this one? No, it's not this one. There's one where he plays a really charismatic bad guy in like the Canadian wilderness, and he gets to use his French accent. He always does the French accent. He can't not do it. He's not that good. He's got a limited range.
Not.
Yeah, he's what is it called?
I mean, you can't expect someone to be great at the physical stuff.
Yeah.
And necessarily a great I mean, does he ever do? I mean, you kind of pre-answered this, but he never does. He's never going to be like, like when Bill Murray did The Razor's Edge or like serious drama. Does JCVD ever try to do like, I think I will do Hamlet?
I think the best one is JCVD. That's the most one where he's really stretching his acting muscles the most. He knows what he can do and what he can't do, and like he does do comedy. Like he was playing a minor character in this thing, which is like
he was on Friends.
Yeah, so he
in 1996.
Yeah, I can't remember, but yeah, there's the Shepherd Border Patrol. Let's see now. I can't remember, but anyways, there's a lot of films, and it's quite fun. But Sudden Death, Die Hard on Ice, Die Hard in a hockey during a hockey game, where JCVD does kill a guy in a mascot outfit and like feeds him into a meat grinder or something. Like it's
sure
as you do, and yeah. But anyways, yeah, I could rant about. I could. Do
I remember him being funny
JCVD.
on his friend's cameo. Where did we land on that three-way?
Orlando Jones. Yeah, I remember. So one other person in this movie is called Orlando Jones, and he was also in this. So I need to find the JCVD movie that he was also in. And Enemies Closer. It was Enemies Closer. Yeah, it was Enemies Closer. So let me pull that up.
Enemies Closer? Okay, we're down the rabbit hole fully now.
Oh yeah, here it is. So he's in Enemies Closer. JCVD is the bad guy, Xander, and he's this flamboyant, like over the top, ridiculous guy. There's a scene where he kills a room full of Mounties. Canadian Mounties, and exactly. And they're out in the woods, and they got to get the drug. There's a bunch of drugs that were parachuted in at the wrong spot, and everyone's after the drugs and blah 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 blah. But anyways,
this needs is a Cocaine Bear crossover.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Enemies closer. But yeah,
So you
see,
keep
he's
your
just
friends close and your enemies close. Oof.
yeah. So he's just playing a bad guy, but he's having a good time doing it.
All right.
Yeah.
And so you recommend?
Yeah, it's a fun movie. I mean,
Enemies Closer
JCVD
and
is the best
JCVD.
one. And then Universal Soldier Day of Reckoning is the second. Those are the two you should see first.
Will I be able to follow it if I haven't seen the first Universal Soldier?
Yeah, exactly. Like there's 6 of them now, but only the first one and the last 2 are worth watching. The fifth one's actually pretty good too, but that's more of a straight up like we're in Chernobyl basically. Let's all kill each other. So yeah, when the last 2 films, they're like these guys have been resurrected, so they could take a lot of bullets. They're meat grinder kind of films. Anyways,
all right. So
yeah.
this raises another question in my mind. So, of action stars, who do you think is the best actor? How many action stars, if any, have successfully crossed over into real serious dramatic roles? And the first thought I immediately have is Tom Cruise, who again, whatever
if he wants to, but he doesn't want to.
What he want? Well, I mean, what it does raise the question: why would you want to be a serious actor and have X number of people watch your movie when you could be an action movie actor and have 10x people watch your movie?
I have an answer, but James, who do you have a thought first before I go?
Yeah, Tony Leon.
Okay,
and Michelle Yeoh.
Oh yeah, definitely Michelle Yeoh. Yeah,
Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah.
Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. I cannot. Not only can I not think of a way Everything, Everywhere, All at Once could be improved, I can't explain why it's as good as it is. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it feels like it's better than perfect somehow.
Mm-hmm. My answer would either be Tom Hardy or Daniel Craig. Tom Hardy has done a lot of serious films. He's actually more of a serious actor, but he was Mad Max in Fury Road. So, and also Eddie in the Venom movies, but Mad Max alone. And then Daniel Craig was obviously James Bond. And I recently, my partner and I did watch Queer, which
What's
is
this?
the new. It's based on the William Burroughs novella.
Oh boy.
Daniel Craig plays William Burroughs in Mexico, where he falls in love with another man, and their relationship, and also their quest to find ayahuasca in the Amazonian rainforest.
I cannot. Okay, yeah. Maybe Daniel Craig can convince me that he's William S. Burroughs, but boy, I feel like they have a different presence. It's hard to imagine Daniel Craig not being imposing, right? That he's just a big dude who exudes big dude energy.
Well, I can, being British and having seen his early stuff, and any other British people who are listening to this, Our Friends in the North, one of the great TV dramas of the UK of the 1990s, the first big thing for not only Daniel Craig, but also Mark Strong and Christopher Eccleston and Gina McKee. It's like 4 massive stars all got their major start in Our Friends in the North. And he's an extremely good actor, but he does not grab you. The camera does not just focus on him.
Okay.
And having watched him come up, no. I think Bond actually it's given him an amazing profile, but at the same time, an awful lot of people have pigeonholed him since that. I think he was a brilliant choice for Bond.
To me, William S. Burroughs looks like the ghost of Tom Waits, right? Like you take Tom.
Well, this is like a
Waits,
1950
already
Burroughs, right?
Zero level.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, okay, yeah. Seeing William S. Burroughs, I when I've seen real footage of him, it's been after the world has really chewed him up and spat him out and stuck him to the underside of its school desk and then scraped him off with a chisel, thrown him in the trash, and he's gone in the the trash and sat in the sun.
And technically, Queer is meant to be like fiction, semi-autobiographical. Burroughs said it was not actual, his biography. So, keep that in mind. But obviously, it's very the movie definitely makes it very biographical about Burroughs. So it's
is this before Burroughs' marriage?
Yes, this is like 1950. Like he is in Mexico.
Before he self-destructed fully.
I mean, he's self-destructed. He's on heroin in the film and like looking for ayahuasca in the jungle and drinking and smoking and like.
But he hasn't shot anyone he loved fatally.
No,
because I feel
it is before his.
That feels like one of those turning points after which you're like, well, there's the before and the after.
But yeah, in the film, Craig plays him as a very needy, lonely, and desperate man who's fallen head over heels over this other man and about the possibility of finding love. The soundtrack's by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. It's a brilliant film, very explicit too. It's extremely gay. So keep that. Don't watch it with your kids.
I'm shocked that this movie entitled Queer is extremely gay. Why was I not informed?
I think what's interesting is just how many times Daniel Craig, James Bond, is doing very, very gay movies, which has kind of been a theme through a lot of his career.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's Knives Out, Angels in America, I believe.
It's where did I hit another one? A bunch of some of his early stuff.
Yeah, so that would be my best action star actor.
Action star actor. Mine is Tom Cruise. I'm not a huge fan, but I'm aware that boy.
Yeah, Magnolia is magnificent. Like it's a.
I was going to say Born on the 4th of July.
What else has he done on that level?
Born on the 4th of July, I would argue.
Yeah.
I would have to see them back to back to think.
I mean, he's had such a long, thorough career. All right, so if we're going to spring off of Burroughs, who's seen the Naked Lunch movie?
Not in a long time.
It's been a while, but that was
intense.
That was something.
And I feel succeeded. An utterly unfilmable novel. And it does at least bring it to the screen in a way that kind of makes sense and captures, for me at least, some of its energy.
It communicates vibes.
Yeah,
that's all you can do with that.
This movie, Weird, is called Queer. It just came out on streaming services like this week. So, great film. Very romantic, not
but not a happy kind.
It's not like depressingly. It's not like the darkest
gaze.
It's not. Yeah, it's complicated.
I feel like this is a love story between two gay men in the 50s. Really puts a pretty thick ceiling on how much of a happy ending.
Well, and when one of them is William Burroughs, it's
right. Yeah. It's like.
So it's actually it's less depressing than I thought it would be. I'll put it that way. I was pleasantly surprised that it was not as dark as I thought it would be. But it's still
you turned off the TV and you're not like, I don't feel like I should regret partaking in humanity.
Oh no.
It's not super bleak.
It's it's a thoughtful, mature film, I would say. So, but yeah, definitely like one I've been thinking about it, after seeing it days later. So, but we're almost half an hour over. So,
which I'm like, I don't mind because I apologize so much for being late.
Don't worry.
It's gonna make me sad for a few days, which does not help anybody at all. But
it happens to us all.
It infuses my apology.
Yeah. But any
RPGs haven't been mentioned for a while. Okay, how would you do the Naked Lunch RPG.
Naked
And
Lunch
the answers
RPG.
Well,
That's actually
Over the Edge would be a place to
Yeah.
start.
No. Well, that's a good answer. My answer would be Itcher's By. Which is a surrealist role-playing game.
Okay.
Which I've run before
Is it
in
Italian?
Nightmail. It is. I think it was written by God. Who I want to say it is in a European. Who? Yeah. The authors.
Martin.
Is it Scandinavian?
What does that say? Oh.
I think that's like they're Scandinavian. I want to say they're Scandinavian.
Okay.
Yeah. So not Italian, but European, I believe. So, I do not know exactly.
Q&A with the authors.
Let's see.
Martin Bull Goodmanson and Ole Peder Guyver.
Okay. Let's see how big their beards are.
Norwegian.
That's a big old beard.
Yep. So yeah, I ran a one shot of it on RPPR for set in Night Vale, and it worked perfectly. So
okay,
yeah, and so yeah, Naked Lunch would definitely be
It would
definitely fit for this. So yeah, it's a very, very loose system, to say the least. So
which you would want.
Yeah. I'd have to rewatch Naked Lunch before I'd be in the right frame of mind to run it. Yeah.
To run the game of the movie of the novel.
Yeah. I've done dumber things for RPPR.
The game of the movie of the novel of the fever dream.
I think every there's like 4 or 5 RPPR campaigns where we we got to run in this system, and then like halfway through, but this episode's in a different system, and like
I can see that. That's very cool.
Well, Caleb gets annoyed by it. It's like, we're using Dread for this session. And he's like, God damn it, Ross. It's
you and your Jenga tiles, Ross.
And we're playing it online in Tabletop Simulator.
Ooh. Now, does the Tabletop Simulator have the like slightly different sizes for each Jenga block? Because that's the key to making Jenga. If they're all because it would be so easy to just use model one Jenga block and then copy it 30 or 40 times, whatever it is, and then it's boring,
It probably wouldn't be very hard to copy one Jenga block and then slightly change the scale.
But you have to do that, and would they think to do that when they're modeling?
No, of course not.
Yeah, I'm sure it's on there.
A professional doing it would not think to do that. A hobbyist would think to do that.
I mean, that's the people modeling that stuff, though. For
so there you go.
So, like, I would imagine maybe somebody's like, I have a LiDAR system. I 3D scanned every single tile. I perfectly emulated it. Got that level of hyperfixation. That's what we need.
This is the only thing that quiets the itching in my brain. Don't judge me. Just love me.
Yeah. No.
Complete digression very briefly. Tristan mentioned Burroughs reading Arpook out loud, and Burroughs' voice was so distinctive. The only thing I've heard that's similar recently, and if you can find this online, I recommend it. Before Christmas, Iggy Pop, who is a DJ on BBC Radio 6 these days, replayed an interview that he'd done, I think, last year. It's 2 hours of him talking to and playing records with Tom Waits. And imagine Iggy Pop's voice and Tom Waits' voice, and it's just, And the only thing I think is if Burroughs, I was listening to it, just the only way this could be better is if William Burroughs was there as well, because the 3 voices were just.
So let me see. You would get like, and then you. Blah, blah.
It's just for the sounds, just for the noise. It's so perfect. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of radio.
Iggy Pop advertised car insurance, but I
that's a UK thing, I imagine.
Dodge commercials like a zookeeper on Monkey House duty. So.
Well, what station does he DJ for?
BBC Radio 6.
So it'd be if you don't have BBC
it's radio.
6, so it would be a radio ad. I would imagine. So
no, he did there was a TV ad.
Oh, there's a TV ad too. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, the car insurance one. It was a few years ago, but I'm sure it's on YouTube.
Now I'm thinking
it was absolutely one of the what moments of watching TV.
Oh man, I think that whenever I think of Iggy Pop, though, I do think of Tom Waits and Iggy Pop's in Coffee and Cigarettes, which is a Jim Jarmusch film, which is absolutely brilliant. Just these vignette anthology scenes of just people hanging out, drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes, and it's so delightfully awkward. Iggy Pop and Tom Waits just hanging out in a diner.
Well, let me tell you about the eggs and bacon they make here.
Yeah, exactly. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
Okay. Yeah. I gotta say, my favorite Jarmusch film. Well, okay.
Well, the RPG one is Ghost Dog, because there's a Ghost Dog RPG.
Yes. Which was apparently pretty good.
It's very detailed. Yeah, I actually have a copy somewhere.
Ghost Dog was good. Only Lovers Left Alive would be the worst Vampire the Masquerade game ever. But Down by Law was my. I have a warm spot for that movie because these three guys escape from jail. One is Tom Waits. One is that Italian comedian who's super duper energetic, and there's a third one.
Yeah.
And the Italian comedian is just bouncing around like a puppy with these two hyper somber, weary, beaten down street types played by Tom Waits and whoever else.
Roberto Benigni.
Oh yeah, that's one of his earlier films.
And then you find out what they were all in for, and the Tom Waits, it's like vagrancy, and the other guy was in for like stealing groceries, and they're like, "Whoa, so what were you in for?" And Roberto Benigni was in for murder. and it was the dumbest murder, where he's like, well, and he was much bigger than me, and we were arguing in the pool hall, so I just picked up a cue ball and I just threw it as hard as I could, and it just hit him right in the middle of the head, and he died.
Aww.
It's wild. It is the funniest thing I've seen Roberto Benigni do.
Yeah, that's not hard. Hey-o. But yeah, sorry.
I have a soft spot for Night on Earth. If anyone's seen that, it's another kind of vignettes one. It's 5 vignettes, 5 cab rides in different cities.
Oh yeah,
around
I've
the
seen
world.
It, but I remember nothing.
It's
got Natasha Lyonne in it, right?
I'm not seeing her on the cast list.
I mean, Ghost Dog's a legit good movie.
Giancarlo Esposito, Rosie Perez, Roberto Benigni. And it's just, the soundtrack is fantastic.
Sure.
But it's a Jim Jarmusch movie. Of course, the soundtrack is fantastic. It's just, there's not a huge amount there. It's just pleasant stories, well told. Great. It's enjoyable. It's like a cab ride. It's pleasant to spend time with these people.
Yeah, they're all cab drivers.
So none of it. So none of it will make you sorry that you're alive. That's something I look for increasingly in my media these days.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe I'm through the phase in my life where I'm like, man, I feel bad. How can I feel worse? I'm gonna listen to Pink Floyd's The Wall and drink some Malort. And what am I gonna watch?
Hell yeah.
I have a. Well, don't in that case. Actually, maybe you should watch I Saw the TV Glow, because it is a masterpiece.
I do need to watch that.
I have heard really divergent opinions about TV Glow. So
it blew me away. I'd heard a lot. It still blew me away. It's very special. But if you just want a piece of feel-good nothing that we happened across last night, Quiz Lady, starring Sandra Oh and Awakafina as sisters. It's silly. It's great. It's genuinely funny. It's genuinely warm.
What's it on?
Streaming. I think Amazon.
Hulu.
Oh, hey, Hulu. I can get. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably on other. It might be on.
Maybe
other
I'll
platforms,
pitch it to the
Yeah.
missus and see if she wants to
All
watch a TV show with me.
Or feel complicated about life and watch Queer, and
Yeah.
but maybe like you'll after you watch that movie, you'll know if you want to do ayahuasca or not. That's for sure. That's one thing you'll have a very definitive opinion on. I don't. I don't want to take ayahuasca after watching that movie. I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, it's like I get it.
Okay.
So but yeah, thank you all so much for watching, for hanging out with us. We will have this stream up on the audio public feed pretty soon. And our next episode, we already have it edited. What was that? I'm totally
plan to do something that might make you feel good before you or should I plan to do something that might make
Dogs
me
in the
feel good
Vineyard
after watching TV Glow?
So yeah, we'll have Dogs in the Vineyard up soon because I have edited it. And then after that, we do have the Paranoia.
I need to do the show notes. I need to find some time to do the show notes.
And
James, I'm not going to hold it against you because I do not have any position from which to criticize people for being a little late about doing the thing they're supposed to do. So you take your time, James.
And we are recording Cyberpunk Red as an episode.
That's Monday, right?
Yeah, Monday.
Yeah.
We're recording
Monday.
that
Monday. Should finish reading that.
Yeah, same. I have some thoughts on it. I'm sure we all do. Yeah.
Cyberpunk Red is a big ass book, but it is it's not super dense text. It's not like 2 columns of 9-point font. And parts of it reiterate stuff that's in other parts.
It's
I think is a design choice based around Greg Rain Realities ETA. That is a Hal question. As long as we're on the topic of Greg being really late, yes. He's working it, but it's always uncertain. Ask him on the Kickstarter, because that is where he replies.
So yeah, Cyberpunk Red. One thing I found very interesting is they took out just one minor thing. They took out like, here's the guns for every corporation names. There's just now categories of weapons.
Right.
So like which I get, like back in the day you wanted like lots of minutia for your guns in RPGs, and now it's like I don't have time for that. I want gun thing that does gun. Like I just need basic stats, man. I don't want to know the difference between this gun and that gun. Like it's a gun. It does gun things. So yeah.
You pointed at people and they do what you say. What other purpose? What do I need to know more than that?
Video games. That's where you get your detailed number stuff.
Yes.
I don't need that in my
Yes,
RPG.
that's where you can. We'll talk about this on Monday.
Yeah, exactly. So keep an eye on that. And hopefully we get Dogs in the Vineyard out soon. We'll have another live stream up before you know it. So thank you all so much for hanging out.
And I will, and I'll be on time for that one.
And we have a Discord. If you want to join our Discord, I probably should have put a link up earlier, but it's in the link on our website, ludonarrative.com, or ludonarrative-dissidents.com, which James has done a bang up job, as they say here in the States, setting up. Yeah, so you can join our conversation here with our link, and we have very great show notes. There is
you get a 404 if you just do ludonarrative.com. We could nab that
one.
We could cyber squat on that.
There we go. But anyways, I need to eat dinner before I go play an RPG. So
I need to go to bed.
Yes. All right. Thank you all so much.
Talk to you later, everybody.
Okay. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching.